The great crystal dome floated above the gas giant like a jewel in space. Captain Dongwu pressed his face against the viewing window of the transport ship and watched the massive structure grow larger as they approached the Galactic Council. Chambers had been his dream destination for 20 years, and now he was finally here. The chamber inside was enormous beyond anything Dongwu had imagined. 47 different species sat in curved rows that rose up like a giant amphitheater. The air shimmered with translation fields that turned alien sounds into human words and human words into clicks, hisses, and musical tones. Ambassador Haijin sat beside him, adjusting her ceremonial robes for the 100th time. Her hands shook slightly as she arranged the golden documents that would make humanity full members of the galactic community. She had spent 15 years preparing for this moment, learning alien customs, studying galactic law, and building friendships with representatives from dozens of worlds. 200 years humans had waited for this day, 2 centuries of serving as observers, watching real members make decisions that affected billions of lives. Humans had fought in galactic wars, they had shared their medical knowledge to cure alien diseases, they had built the hyperspace relay networks that connected distant star systems. They had done everything asked of them, and more. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood at the center podium. His blue skin gleamed under the chamber's lights, and his silver eyes reflected the crystalline walls around them. He was tall even for his species, and his voice carried easily through the vast space when he spoke. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy filled the chamber. The insect-like Valkyrians clicked their mandibles in complex patterns. The aquatic nautiloids had special breathing apparatus that let them survive in the chamber's atmosphere. The mechanical synthetics glowed with internal lights that pulsed in rhythm with their thoughts. Dongwu had memorized the names and faces of every species present. He knew which ones supported humanity and which ones had doubts. The crystalline collective had always been friendly thanks to human doctors who had helped treat their silicon-based diseases. The ethereal dominion remained neutral but respectful. The Serpentine Empire had never liked humans, but they respected human military skills. The ceremony should have been simple: a formal presentation of humanity's achievements, a vote by the member species, a welcome speech, and then the signing of the membership charter. Haijin had prepared her acceptance speech months ago. She had practiced it in 17 different languages to honor the diversity of the galactic community, but something felt wrong. The chamber was too quiet. Representatives avoided looking at the human delegation. Conversations stopped when humans walked past. The Valkyrian ambassador, who had always been friendly, now seemed distant and formal. The chancellor raised his hand for silence. The massive chamber fell quiet instantly. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds, all focused on the tall blue figure at the center. Dongwu felt his heart beating faster. This was it, the moment that would change everything for humanity. The words came like a physical blow. The Council has reached its decision regarding humanity's petition for full membership. The Chancellor paused and looked directly at the human delegation. The petition is denied. The word echoed through the chamber like thunder. Dongwu felt the universe tilt around him. Beside him, Haijin made a small choking sound. Her carefully prepared acceptance speech fluttered from her hands to the floor. The Chancellor continued as if he had not just destroyed 2 centuries of human dreams and sacrifice. Humanity lacks the spiritual development necessary for true galactic citizenship. Their aggressive tendencies and rapid expansion make them unsuitable for decision-making roles. They shall remain observers only with limited trading privileges. The chamber erupted in discussions. Some species seemed pleased with the decision, others looked uncomfortable, a few even appeared shocked. The Valkyrian representative clicked disapprovingly, his mandibles moving in what Dongwu recognized as a pattern of disagreement. Haijin stood up slowly. Her face had gone completely pale, but her voice remained steady when she spoke. Chancellor, may I ask what specific actions led to this decision? Humanity has fulfilled every requirement for membership. We have served faithfully for 2 centuries. We have shed blood for galactic peace. We have shared our knowledge freely. The Chancellor barely glanced at her. Your species emotional volatility makes you unpredictable. Your tendency toward violence, even in defense of others, shows poor judgment. Your rapid technological advancement suggests you cannot be trusted with the responsibilities of full membership. Each word was like a dagger in Dongwu's chest. They were being called violent by species that had started 3 wars in the last century. They were being called untrustworthy by civilizations that had broken dozens of treaties. They were being called spiritually underdeveloped by empires that had enslaved entire worlds around the chamber alien. Representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some seemed to be having second thoughts about the decision. The crystalline collective representative actually stood and spoke. Chancellor, I must respectfully disagree. Human medical knowledge saved my people from extinction. Their spiritual development is evident in their selfless service, but the Chancellor cut him off with a gesture. The decision is final. Humanity will remain observers. They may continue to serve the galactic community in their current capacity, but they will not be granted voting rights or decision. Making authority, Dongwu stood up slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. The weight of 2 centuries of human hopes rested on his shoulders. He thought about all the humans who had died believing their sacrifice would lead to this moment. He thought about the children on Earth who dreamed of exploring the galaxy as equals. He thought about the scientists and doctors and engineers who had given their lives to advance galactic civilization. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small communication device. His voice was calm and clear when he spoke into it. This is Captain Dongwu of the Terran Federation. Authorization Code Delta 77. Execute Order Exodus. All human assets, personnel, and civilians are to withdraw from Galactic Council space immediately. The chamber fell dead silent. This was unprecedented. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever voluntarily left the Council's protection. The very idea was unthinkable. Jin stood beside him. Her tears had stopped, and her voice was steady as steel when she addressed the chamber. We came here hoping to join you as equals. Instead, we are told we are not worthy of your table. Very well, we will build our own. The human delegation gathered their materials and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. Behind them, frantic discussions erupted as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The humans were not just leaving the council. They were abandoning the entire galactic civilization that had existed for millennia. They were walking away from everything they had helped build, everything they had fought to protect, everything they had dreamed of joining as. They reached the chamber doors. Dongwu turned back one last time. The 47 species that had rejected humanity were already arguing among themselves. Some seemed to realize they had made a terrible mistake. Others appeared confused about what would happen next, but it was too late. The decision had been made, and humanity had made their choice. In return, they would no longer serve a civilization that refused to accept them as equals. They would no longer give their lives for species that saw them as inferior. They would no longer beg for a seat at a table that would never welcome them. The doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder, and the age of human isolation began. 6 months after the council meeting, the galaxy watched in growing alarm as humanity systematically erased itself from every corner of civilized space. Commander Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the massive cargo vessel Soul's Pride, watching through the viewports as the last human mining station was carefully dismantled piece by piece. The asteroid belt around Kepler 442 had been humanity's most profitable mining operation for 30 years. The rare minerals extracted here had powered the technology of dozens of alien civilizations. Human engineers had turned worthless rocks into the foundation of galactic prosperity. Now it was all being packed away like a temporary camp. Lieutenant Su Young approached from her communications station. Sir, the Crystalline Collective is offering 5 times the standard rate to keep just one extraction facility operational. Their silicon-based biology requires the rare earth elements we mine here. Without them, their people will start dying within a year. Ji-hoon shook his head firmly. Tell them what we have told everyone else. Humanity is going home. Everything comes with us. He paused and looked out at the dismantling operation. No exceptions. The withdrawal was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was methodical, complete, and absolutely final. Human colonies that had existed for generations packed up everything they could carry. Space stations were carefully taken apart, their components loaded onto vast transport ships. Even the smallest human outposts were evacuated, leaving behind only empty structures and confused alien neighbors. What shocked the galaxy most was discovering how deeply integrated humans had become into their civilization. They had been everywhere human doctors worked. In hospitals on hundreds of worlds, human teachers educated alien children in their own histories. Human engineers designed the systems that kept entire civilizations running on. The water world of Aquatica, the amphibious nautiloids gathered around. Dr. Young Ho, as he packed his final medical supplies, for 30 years he had worked to cure the genetic plague that slowly killed their species. He was only 2 years away from a complete cure, 2 years that would save millions of lives, please, doctor. Young Ho, the nautiloid elder, pleaded through his translator device, your work here is more important than politics. Our children are dying. Every day we lose more of our people. Surely this disagreement between governments need not affect medical research. Young Ho paused in his packing, his heart breaking as he looked at the desperate faces around him. I'm sorry, my friends, but my government has made its decision. All humans must return to Earth space. He sealed the last container of research materials. I have left all my notes in your computer systems. Perhaps your own scientist can continue the work. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human art teachers left behind students who would never complete their masterpieces. Human diplomats abandoned peace negotiations that had been progressing for decades. Human merchants closed trade routes that had operated for generations. The cultural exchange programs that had brought different species together were shut down overnight. The economic impact was immediate and devastating. The Galactic Trade Index collapsed as supply chains that had operated for centuries simply vanished. Species that had built their entire economies around human innovations found themselves unable to compete. The Felinoid Confederation, which had specialized in luxury goods designed by human artists, faced mass unemployment, but the technological withdrawal was even more catastrophic. Humans had been generous with their knowledge, sharing everything from medical techniques to manufacturing processes. Now, as they departed, they activated hidden shutdown codes in the technology they had gifted to other species. The hyperspace relay network that connected the galaxy began failing as human-designed. Components went offline. The sophisticated defense systems protecting dozens of worlds went dark. Even simple things like water purification systems and atmospheric processors stopped working as their human creators departed. Commander B.O. Young stood in the command center of the evacuation fleet, watching thousands of human ships stretching beyond the horizon. Each vessel carried families, communities, entire ways of life being uprooted from homes they had known for generations. She had been born on the mining world of Kepler 442 and had never seen Earth until now. Status report she requested from her staff: 73% of human assets have been successfully evacuated, reported her aide. Myung, the remaining settlements are in the Outer Rim territories. They should complete evacuation within 3 months. The aliens watched this unprecedented exodus with growing panic. They had expected humans to negotiate, to compromise, perhaps to accept a lesser status. Instead, humanity was demonstrating something the galaxy had never seen before: the willingness to completely abandon a civilization that did not want them. The Mechanical Syndicate, a species of artificial beings whose entire society was built on precise efficiency, found themselves facing an existential crisis. Their manufacturing processes had been designed by human engineers without maintenance and updates. Their production capabilities were failing. Their robotic cities began to malfunction as systems broke down. We require immediate technical assistance, the Syndicate ambassador transmitted to the departing human fleet. We are prepared to offer compensation far beyond standard rates. Our society depends on the systems your people created. The response came from Admiral Taewoo, commanding the human evacuation fleet. The Terran Federation is not currently providing technical assistance to Galactic Council species. You should contact the Council for aid, but the Council cannot replicate human engineering knowledge. The Syndicate replied desperately, our attempts to reverse engineer your systems have resulted in catastrophic failures. 3 of our cities have already gone offline. We are dying. The transmission ended without a response, leaving the artificial beings to face the slow death of their civilization. On the agricultural world of Verdania, the plant-based Florins watched their carefully tended crops wither and die. The advanced growing techniques that human farmers had taught them were failing. Without proper maintenance, the delicate balance of nutrients, soil composition, and Atmospheric conditions that had tripled their food production was collapsing the ethereal Dominion faced their own crisis as the peace negotiations they had been conducting with the Shadow Collective fell apart without human mediators who understood both cultures. The talks descended into accusations and threats of war. Two species that had been moving toward peaceful coexistence were now mobilizing their fleets. Even the proud Serpentine Empire, which had never liked humans, found themselves struggling. The early warning systems that protected their homeworld from asteroid impacts had been designed by human scientists. Now, with those systems offline, their planet was vulnerable to cosmic threats. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about interdependence. They had viewed humans as useful servants, never realizing that these servants had become the foundation upon which their entire civilization rested. The networks that connected their worlds, the systems that protected their lives, the knowledge that advanced their sciences, all bore the invisible mark of human contribution as the last human transport ships disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the Sol system. The galaxy was left to confront a frightening reality. They had not just rejected humanity from their council. They had expelled the species that had been quietly holding their civilization together. The age of human isolation had begun, and the galaxy was about to discover what they had truly lost. 2 years had passed since humanity's withdrawal, and the galaxy was learning to live with consequences that grew worse each day. What had seemed like a manageable disruption had become a crisis that touched every corner of civilized space fleet. Admiral Taewoo stood in the command center of New Horizon Humanity's most advanced battleship, patrolling the edge of the Sol system. Through the massive viewports, he could see the impressive defensive installations that surrounded Earth's solar system. Orbital platforms, defense satellites, and patrol fleets created a barrier that no alien force could penetrate. The humans had used their 2 years of isolation to build the most sophisticated defensive network the galaxy had ever seen. Sir, we are receiving another diplomatic request, Commander Bao Young announced from her station. This time from the Ethereal Dominion. They are requesting permission to send a peace envoy to discuss mutual cooperation. Taewoo did not look up from his tactical displays. Standard response: humanity is not receiving diplomatic missions at this time. They can submit their requests through official channels to the Terran Federation External Affairs Division. The official channels had been processing requests for over a year with no responses. Earth had become a fortress world that acknowledged no authority beyond its own borders. The Terran Federation had made its position clear. They would not engage with the galactic community until they were offered full membership with equal voting rights. The consequences of humanity's absence were becoming catastrophic. The Serpentine Wars had erupted in the outer rim, a conflict that human mediators had been working to prevent for decades. Without their diplomatic expertise, 3 species were now locked in a bloody territorial dispute that was consuming entire star systems. On the industrial world of Mechanica, the robotic synthetics faced complete system failure. Their manufacturing processes had been designed by human engineers, and without maintenance their production capabilities were grinding to a halt. Their society, built on mechanical precision, was slowly dying as critical systems failed one by one. The situation was even worse in the medical field. Dr. J1, formerly the galaxy's leading expert in cross-species medicine, now worked in a small clinic on Mars. He spent his days treating minor injuries and common human ailments, while his vast knowledge of alien biology became useless in humanity's isolation. It is frustrating, he confided to his colleague, Dr. Sun He, as they reviewed patient files. I could save the crystalline collective children. Their silicon-based biology is vulnerable to a simple viral infection, but they do not understand the treatment process. The cure is so simple, but they cannot replicate it. Sun He nodded sadly. The Galactic Health Organization has sent 23 formal requests for consultation, each one more desperate than the last. Their medical systems are collapsing without human expertise, and each one denied by the Federation Council. J1 replied bitterly, they made their choice about our worth. Now they must live with the consequences. The galaxy's infrastructure continued to crumble. The hyperspace relay network, already weakened by human withdrawal, suffered a cascade failure that left 80 systems completely isolated from interstellar communication. The early warning systems that had protected civilized space From cosmic threats had been offline for months. 3 worlds had already been devastated by asteroid impacts that could have been prevented. The Aquatic Confederation lost their ocean world when a massive comet struck their planet. The Florins watched helplessly as solar flares destroyed their carefully tended crop worlds. The Mechanical Syndicate suffered catastrophic damage when their homeworld was struck by space debris. Even more concerning was the complete economic collapse. The Galactic Trade Index had never recovered from humanity's departure. Species that had relied on human innovation found themselves unable to compete. The Felinoid Confederation, once prosperous from luxury goods designed by human artists, now faced revolution. As their economy collapsed, Captain Kyung-soo, commanding the patrol ship Defiant, intercepted another desperate attempt to reach Earth. A massive Valkyrian trade vessel approached the outer defense perimeter, its insect-like crew broadcasting pleas for help on all frequencies. "This is Captain Kyung-soo of the Terran Federation Navy," he transmitted. "You are approaching restricted space. Turn back immediately or face defensive action." The Valkyrian captain responded with the clicking sounds that the translator converted to words. "Please, Captain, our colonies are starving. The agricultural techniques your people taught us have failed. We cannot repair the growing systems without human knowledge. We need help." Kyung-soo felt sympathy for their plight, but his orders were clear. "I am sorry, but Earth is not currently accepting visitors or providing assistance. Please contact the Galactic Council for aid." "The Council cannot help us," the Valkyrian replied desperately. "They do not understand the systems your people designed. Half our worlds are facing famine. We are dying." The transmission ended as the Valkyrian ship slowly turned away, joining the growing list of species that had been refused entry to human space. Similar scenes played out daily as the full price of humanity's exclusion became clear. The galaxy had discovered something terrifying. They had built their entire civilization on the assumption that humans would always be there to fix their problems, to mediate their conflicts, to share their knowledge. Without that foundation, everything was falling apart. The crystalline collective faced extinction as the silicon plague spread unchecked through their population. The nautiloids watched helplessly as their genetic diseases claimed more victims each day. The Ethereal Dominion and Shadow Collective were preparing for a war that would devastate both species. Even the proud Galactic Council itself was struggling. The crystal dome that had housed their government for 3,000 years was now mostly empty as species withdrew from participation. Many civilizations were too busy dealing with their own crises to attend council meetings. Chancellor Zarthak, the Zephyrian leader who had denied humanity's membership, now stood in the nearly empty chamber, addressing the few remaining representatives. "The human withdrawal has created challenges we did not anticipate," he admitted reluctantly. "Perhaps we should reconsider our position," but it was too late. The damage was done, and humanity had made their choice. They would not return to serve a civilization that had rejected them. They would not compromise their dignity for the convenience of species that had called them unworthy. The galaxy was beginning to understand that they had not just lost a useful species, they had lost the foundation of their civilization, the quiet helpers who had made everything work, the problem solvers who had kept their society functioning, the bridge builders who had held their diverse civilizations together. As the third year of isolation began, the galaxy faced an uncomfortable truth. They needed humanity far more than humanity needed them. The Galactic Council chambers had become a place of chaos. Representatives from the surviving species argued, pleaded, and demanded action as their civilizations slowly died without human support. The crystal dome that had once been a symbol of unity now echoed with desperate voices and angry accusations. Chancellor Zarthak, the Zephyrian leader who had denied humanity's membership 4 years ago, stood at the central podium trying to maintain order. His silver eyes, once confident and proud now, showed the strain of managing a galaxy-wide disaster. His own homeworld was facing revolution as their people blamed him for the crisis. "The floor recognizes the crystalline collective," he announced, his voice barely heard over the commotion. The silicon-based representative rose from their seat, their crystalline structure dull and cracked from stress. "Honored Council, 60% of our population has died from the silicon plague. Our medical facilities cannot replicate the treatments that human doctors developed. We formally request that the Council reverse its decision and invite humanity back." The chamber erupted in support and opposition. The serpentine ambassador, his scaled features twisted with rage, hissed his response the humans abandoned. US, they chose isolation over responsibility. Why should we beg them to return? Because we are dying. The nautiloid representative surged forward, his amphibious form dripping with desperation. 70% of our people have died from genetic diseases. The human doctor was only 2 years from a complete cure when he was forced to leave. Now our species faces extinction. Fleet commander Unji listened to the council debates from her ship stationed at the edge of human space. Intelligence reports painted a picture of complete civilizational collapse. The humans had been far more important to galactic society than anyone had realized. Commander, her intelligence officer, Lieutenant Wu Jin, approached with the latest reports. The ethereal dominion government has collapsed completely without human mediators. Their peace treaty with the Shadow Collective failed. They are now in full-scale Waranji. Studied the tactical display showing expanding conflict zones throughout the galaxy and the Mechanical Syndicate. Their production capacity has dropped to 20% of normal levels. They are requesting immediate technical assistance to repair their manufacturing systems. Wu Jin paused. They are offering to pay 10 times the standard consultation fees. 10 times. Yunji raised an eyebrow. Last month they offered 5 times. The desperation is increasing faster than we projected. The galaxy's desperation was evident in the increasingly generous offers reaching Earth. Species that had once viewed humans as inferior servants were now offering unprecedented trade deals, territorial concessions, and technological exchanges, just for basic consultation. But Earth's response remained unchanged. The Terran Federation had established a simple policy: humanity would not engage with the Galactic Council or its member species until they were offered full membership with voting rights equal to any other civilization. President Nayan, addressing the Terran Federation Assembly from the Capitol building in Geneva, laid out humanity's position with crystal clarity. We will not return to a table where we are treated as servants. We will not compromise our dignity for the convenience of species that rejected us when we sought equality. The assembly chamber, filled with representatives from every human world, erupted in applause. The years of isolation had strengthened human resolve rather than weakening it. They had discovered they could not only survive but thrive without the galaxies. Acceptance. Human colonies in the Sol system had become more productive than ever, without the obligation to provide aid to alien species. Human scientists, engineers, and doctors focused their talents on improving life for their own people. Medical breakthroughs, technological innovations, and artistic achievements flourished in the protective isolation, but the galaxy continued to suffer. The hyperspace relay network suffered another cascade failure that left 30 systems completely cut off from communication. The early warning systems remained offline, and 5 more worlds had been devastated by preventable cosmic disasters. Trade routes that had operated for centuries collapsed as human-designed navigation systems failed. The sophisticated supply networks that had kept goods flowing between distant systems ground to a halt. Basic interstellar travel became dangerous as safety protocols developed by human engineers were forgotten. The Council's attempts to replace human expertise with their own had failed miserably. The Mechanical Syndicate's effort to reverse engineer human manufacturing techniques resulted in industrial accidents that killed thousands. The Ethereal Dominion's attempts to recreate human diplomatic methods only made their conflicts worse. The Florins had tried to continue human agricultural techniques, but their crops withered and died without proper understanding of the complex biological systems. The Crystalline Collective attempted to treat their plague using their own medical knowledge, but succeeded only in making the disease spread faster. Even basic maintenance of existing systems became impossible without human knowledge. The orbital platforms protecting dozens of worlds began to fail. The atmospheric processors that made hostile worlds habitable started breaking down. The water purification systems that supplied billions of people slowly stopped working as the 5th year of human isolation began. 3 entire species had been declared extinct. The Aquatic Confederation had lost their last colony world to preventable disaster. The Botanical Empire had died out when their symbiotic relationship with alien plants collapsed without human agricultural knowledge. The Harmonic Collective had simply stopped reproducing when their complex mating rituals failed without human cultural guidance. the survivors faced an uncomfortable truth. They had not just rejected humanity's request to join their club, they had expelled the species that had been quietly holding their civilization together. The humans had not been asking to join as junior partners. They had been trying to formalize a relationship where they were already the indispensable foundation. The Galactic Council itself was falling apart. Member species were withdrawing from participation, focusing on their own survival rather than collective governance. The ancient institution that had governed the galaxy for 3,000 years was crumbling as its members faced extinction. In the nearly empty council chambers, Chancellor Zarthak stood before the few remaining representatives, his voice heavy with the weight of failure. "We made a grave error in judgment 4 years ago," he admitted. "We rejected humanity, not because they were unworthy, but because we were too proud to admit how much we needed them." The chamber fell silent as the truth finally sank in. The galaxy had not just lost a useful species, they had lost the foundation of their civilization, and humanity had demonstrated something the galaxy had never seen before: the strength to walk away from those who did not value them. The reckoning had come, and the galaxy was learning the price of their arrogance. By the 6th year of humanity's isolation, the galaxy faced complete collapse. What had started as political disagreement had become an extinction-level crisis for multiple species. The Galactic Council, once the proud governing body of 47 civilizations, now struggled to maintain communication between the few surviving. World Supreme Admiral Dongmin commanded the human defense fleet from the massive battleship Sovereign, positioned at the edge of the Sol system's protective barrier. His ships maintained constant watch as increasingly desperate alien vessels approached Earth's borders. "Every day, sir, we are detecting a massive fleet approaching from the Centauri sector," reported his tactical officer, Commander Yuan Wu. "Configuration analysis suggests it is the entire Crystalline Collective Emergency Evacuation Fleet." Dong Min studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. The approaching fleet was enormous, easily 5 times larger than any previous diplomatic mission. More troubling, the ships were configured for long-range survival, suggesting they carried not diplomats but refugees. "Open a channel," he ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the fractured features of a Crystalline Collective commander. The silicon-based being's normally bright structure appeared dull and cracked, indicating severe illness or extreme stress. "This is Commander Prism 7 of the Collective Emergency Fleet," the alien announced. "We are carrying the last survivors of our species. 85% of our population has died from the Silicon Plague. We request humanitarian asylum in human space." The request sent shockwaves through the human command structure. This was unprecedented. The Crystalline Collective had been one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, with billions of citizens across dozens of worlds. Now they were reduced to a handful of refugee ships. Commander Dong Min replied carefully, "I understand your desperate situation, but Earth is not currently accepting asylum requests from former Galactic Council species. You should direct your request to the Council's Refugee Management Division." "The Council no longer exists," Prism 7 responded with what sounded like electronic despair. 4 days ago, the Zephyrian homeworld fell to revolution. The Chancellor who denied your membership was executed by his own people. The Council chambers on Nexus Prime have been abandoned. There is no central authority left. This news stunned the human command crew. The Galactic Council had governed civilized space for 3,000 years. Its complete collapse meant the galaxy was truly without leadership, chaos reigning where order had once existed on Earth. President Nayan convened an emergency session of the Terran Federation Assembly. The vast chamber in Geneva was packed with representatives from every human world, their faces grim as they received reports of galactic catastrophe. "The situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections," reported Foreign Minister Haiyan. 22 species are now classified as facing extinction-level threats. The Serpentine Wars have expanded to consume 60 star systems. The hyperspace relay network has suffered complete failure in 4 galactic sectors. Assembly Speaker Minho stood to address the packed chamber. "The question before us is simple. Do we maintain our isolation while the galaxy burns? Or do we intervene to prevent the complete collapse of interstellar civilization?" The debate that followed was intense and emotional, representatives arguing for continued isolation, pointed to the years of rejection and discrimination humanity had endured. Those favoring intervention emphasized the moral obligation to prevent genocide and civilizational collapse. Dr. J1, speaking as a representative of the medical corps, made perhaps the most compelling argument. I understand the desire for justice. The galaxy rejected us, and now they face consequences. But we are doctors, teachers, and engineers. Can we stand by and watch billions die when we have the knowledge to save them? The discussion continued for hours as representatives wrestled with the moral implications. Some argued that humanity owed nothing to species that had called them unworthy. Others insisted that allowing mass extinction would make humans no better than their former oppressors. Young representative, so he stood to address the assembly. I was born after the withdrawal. I have never known the galaxy that rejected us, but I have studied the records. I have seen what we accomplished together before politics divided us. She paused, looking around the chamber. We are not choosing between justice and mercy. We are choosing what kind of species we want to. Beatty words resonated through the assembly hall. Gradually a consensus emerged. Humanity would not return to their former role as unequal partners, but they could not ignore the moral imperative to prevent extinction. President Nayan announced the Federation's decision. We will provide humanitarian assistance to species facing extinction, but only under specific conditions. First, all aid will be provided by human personnel operating from human-controlled facilities. Second, recipient species must formally acknowledge humanity's equal status and commit to supporting full human membership in any future galactic government. Third, we will not restore the old systems. Any new civilization must be built on principles of genuine equality. The announcement was transmitted throughout human space and beyond, carried by the few remaining communication networks. The galaxy's response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, formal acknowledgments began arriving from desperate species across the galaxy. The Nautiloid Confederation, facing extinction from genetic plague, was first to formally recognize humanity's equal status. The Mechanical Syndicate, whose production had collapsed, quickly followed. Even the proud ethereal Dominion, now reduced to refugee fleets, swallowed their pride. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. A small diplomatic vessel approached the Sol system carrying young representatives from various species. They called themselves the New Galactic Assembly, and they had a proposal that would change everything. We learned from human teachers, the young crystalline representative transmitted. We studied human philosophy. We worked alongside human colleagues. We know the old system failed because it was built on hierarchy and exclusion. We want to build something new, something based on the equality and cooperation that humans taught us. The proposal was revolutionary. Instead of a governing council that granted membership to worthy species, the new assembly would be a federation of equals. Every species, regardless of age, development, or power, would have equal voice and governance. President Nayan listened to the young aliens outline their vision with growing hope. These beings had grown up learning human values. They understood that civilization's strength came from diversity, not uniformity, from cooperation, not domination. The galaxy was finally ready to learn what humanity had been trying to teach them for centuries, that true civilization was not about who was worthy to sit at the table. It was about building a table big enough for everyone. The meeting that would reshape galactic civilization took place aboard the human space station Unity, orbiting Earth's moon. Ambassador Hygen, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic representative, walked through the station's gleaming corridors, filled with representatives from dozens of species working together for the first time. The sight still amazed her. 7 years ago, she had been rejected by the Galactic Council as unworthy of membership. Now she was hosting the foundation of an entirely new form of galactic governance built on principles that humanity had always believed in. The New Galactic Assembly was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, led by young representatives from various species who had grown up learning from human teachers, studying human philosophy, and working alongside human colleagues. They proposed a radically different approach to interstellar civilization. The old council was built on hierarchy and exclusion, explained Representative Harmony Blue, a young crystalline collective member whose structure now glowed with health thanks to human medical intervention. The new assembly will be built on equality and mutual cooperation. The proposal was revolutionary. Instead of a central authority that granted membership to worthy species, the new assembly would be a federation of equals. Every species, regardless of age, development level, or military power, would have equal voice in governance. Decisions. President Nayan, attending the historic conference, listened as the young alien representatives outlined their vision. We learned from human teachers that civilization's strength comes not from uniformity but from diversity. Not from domination but from cooperation. The transformation was already beginning. Human medical teams worked around the clock to address the galaxy's health crises. Dr. J1 had established treatment centers on 15 worlds, training local medical staff in techniques needed to combat the plagues and genetic disorders that had been devastating alien populations. The most rewarding part, he explained to his colleague Dr. Sun, he is not just treating the diseases but teaching others to heal themselves. The old system made species dependent on outside expertise. The new approach focuses on knowledge sharing and local capacity. Building human engineers worked alongside alien specialists to rebuild the galaxy's infrastructure, but this time with redundancy and local control built into every system. The new hyperspace relay network would be operated by regional councils rather than central authority, making it more resilient to failure. Captain Kyung-soo, now serving as coordinator for the infrastructure restoration project, marveled at the progress. We are not just rebuilding the old systems, we are creating something better. Every species contributes their unique expertise and every region maintains operational independence. The technological restoration efforts were impressive, but the cultural changes were even more significant. The young generation of alien leaders, many educated in human schools or trained by human mentors, understood that the galaxy's survival depended on embracing concepts of democracy, cooperation, and mutual respect. Some species struggled with genuine equality, having been accustomed to hierarchical relationships for millennia. Others found it difficult to accept that they would have the same voting power as civilizations they had previously considered inferior, but the new leaders provided bridges between old and new thinking. They understood that democracy was not about everyone being the same, but about everyone having equal value in the decision-making process. The signing ceremony for the new Galactic Charter took place in the station's main assembly hall. Representatives from 36 surviving species gathered to witness the historic moment. The document itself was a masterpiece of cooperative drafting, incorporating legal traditions and philosophical concepts from every participating civilization. As Haijin signed the charter on behalf of humanity, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment 7 years ago. We were told we were not worthy of sitting at your table today. We are building a new table together, one with room for everyone. Ceremony was broadcast throughout human space and to the recovering civilizations beyond on Earth. Crowds gathered in city centers to watch as humanity officially joined the new Galactic Assembly as a founding member with full voting rights and equal status. The Assembly's first official act was to establish the Galactic Humanitarian Corps, a joint organization dedicated to preventing the kind of crisis that had nearly destroyed interstellar civilization. The Corps would be headquartered on Earth with human expertise serving as its foundation. The old Galactic Council had ruled through exclusion and hierarchy, creating a system where some species were more equal than others. The new assembly would govern through inclusion and cooperation, recognizing that every civilization had unique contributions to make. Young Representative Sohee, addressing the assembled delegates, captured the spirit of the new era perfectly. We are not here to recreate what was broken, we are here to build something that has never existed before. A truly equal partnership between all the children of the galaxy. The transformation was not without challenges. Regional conflicts still erupted, requiring careful mediation. Economic disparities between species needed addressing. Infrastructure failures demanded constant attention. But now these problems were faced by a united galactic community working together rather than a hierarchical system that excluded voices. The new hyperspace relay network came online with regional nodes operated by local councils. The early warning systems were rebuilt with multiple redundancies and shared control. The medical knowledge that had been restricted to human experts was now taught freely to anyone who wanted to learn. Dr. Young Ho returned to Aquatica, not as a human expert serving alien patients, but as a partner working with nautiloid scientists to develop treatments for genetic diseases. Their collaboration produced breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from having the most powerful military or the most advanced technology. It came from the willingness to work together, to share knowledge, and to treat all species as equals, regardless of their differences. As the Unity Station orbited Earth, its conference halls filled with the sounds of dozens of species working together to solve common problems, it became clear that humanity's isolation had not been a retreat from galactic civilization. It had been the catalyst needed to create something better. The galaxy had watched in shock as humanity abandoned their table. Now they were all joining humanity at a new table built on foundations of mutual respect and shared dignity. The future would not be perfect, but it would be built by equals working together toward common goals. The age of human isolation was over. The age of true galactic civilization had begun.